Welcome to Talk-Jitsu with host Uke Mike, Joey Breski, and me, Jordan Preisinger from Jordan Teaches Jiujitsu. Today we don't have Joey. Today instead we have Aaron, who is a police officer, and he's going to give us his experience being a police officer and doing jiu-jitsu and the reasons why he started jiu-jitsu as a police officer. So Aaron has a very interesting story, and we're really excited to share him with you and his story. So take it away, Aaron. Why did you start jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, sure. So I have to make a little disclaimer just at the start of our podcast here that I'm in no way speaking for any police service or behalf of any police service. I'm not a use of force expert. I'm not a defensive tactics instructor. Anything I say here really is like my own personal experience, and I'm not speaking for any police service or their policy or procedure here today. But now that I'm past that mumbo jumbo, how did I get into jiu-jitsu? Like, I think I was always long before I was a police officer, I was always sort of, same as a lot of people. They like seeing the UFC. They saw those Gracie videos of how the Gracies would bring in different types of martial arts because there's always those arguments about which is the best martial art, right? And I think every martial art has its own, qualities and good things about it, but Jiu-Jitsu, I think, is very specific to policing because it involves keeping control of people and just the ability to maintain a specific level of calm in the middle of absolute chaos. You see people when they, when they're rolling on the mats, they get nervous, they tap because of pressure and stuff like that. And man, when I started here, I'm a blue belt under you, and I started here, God damn, I was tapping the pressure all the time when I first started, right? You don't realize till you walk into one of these gyms and you feel that and how helpless you are, in those situations.
In real life situations?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's go back, how I got into doing jiu-jitsu. I did dabble a little bit when I was younger, when I was in high school for a very short period of time. It was really just sort of reckless playing on the mats. I'm surprised I didn't break a leg or get hurt, but didn't. Came back to it after watching the UFC and seeing all that stuff, and it was always something in the back of my head I wanted to get into. I had an incident at a police service I used to work at, which is a fairly large, a university town, and got a call. I was riding with a partner, female officer who I would ride with pretty regularly, and it was a regular night shift, and we were riding around. And at that point, we weren't issued tasers, and we were riding around. We got a call for someone who had just walked away from mental health ward of the hospital, and they gave us a brief description. And to be frank, that's probably not something that's actually as uncommon as you'd think it would be. People go out for smoke breaks and then leave, or whatever the case may be. So we get there, and sure enough, here's Buddy walking down the street, and said to my partner, "Oh, there he is right there." And look at this guy, and he's I want to say probably 6'3", 6'4", pretty big guy. Looks like he's in pretty good shape, and he's young. He's maybe 20 years old or somewhere around there. And just walking behind him, and hey man, stop, just gotta chat to you for a second. And he just keeps walking, he's not stopping for me. So yeah, I go hey man, stop. And as soon as I put my hands on him, he turned around and he said, "The fuck are you gonna do?" And that at that moment, that's when the hairs on your arms start perking up, and you're trying to, the famous, we're trying to de-escalate. But someone is either not interested in going to jail or not interested in going back to the hospital, it's your job that you have to take control of that situation. And if they don't want to go, you're obligated to make them go. And so I reverted back to some of my training at, police college and stuff like that, and tried to take this guy down, and really had no clue what I was doing. And I tried to take him down, and he basically pushed me off him, and point I took my baton out. Our batons are like about this big, and they're made of steel, and I gave him a good whap in the leg, and he looked me square in the eye and basically almost laughed at me. And at that moment, I was like, holy shit. Like, I could be in for a world of hurt here. This guy's way bigger than me. I have a partner who I trust and who's an awesome like person, but like she has the same training that I do. And right now it's not working. And we got in a scuffle and a bit of a wrestling match. And at one point he actually headlocked me. And thank God he didn't know what he was doing either. But when you're headlocked and you don't know what you're doing and you have a gun on you and you have a responsibility to get this guy in control, it's a scary position to be in. And I ended up getting out of that headlock, but in that probably 4 seconds, maybe that I was in there, like, I had a lot of thoughts going through my mind. And a lot of them were, I'm screwed. Yeah. And I really never wanted to be in that position ever again. That ended up with really the only reason why we ended up sort of overcoming that situation is because we called for an officer with a taser. And he actually didn't end up having to use it. That by the time he got there, we were all so gassed out. He was gassed out, and me and my partner were gassed out. And some police have a saying called a yard sale, and it's like when you're done in a physical altercation where all your stuff is off you, your baton, your radio, your pens, your notebooks, all your stuff is everywhere. And that speaks to you're just trying to do anything you can to gain control of a situation, but things might not be working. So that was a big stepping stone and a big reason why I knew that jiu-jitsu was really good. I didn't know how good it was, and why I started to train it a little bit after that. Why I stepped in the gym and signed up, because I just never want to be in a situation where I just don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Where you feel out of control.
Yeah, where I feel out of control, and or if I'm in a situation where I am out of control, that I know that I have the ability to remain calm in that situation and get out of it. So yeah, that's why I got into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and sorry, you're not a small guy either, right? Like you're probably like 6 foot more.
Yeah, I'm 6 foot and I'm about 200 pounds. And like I work out. I'm not a strong man or anything, but I keep in shape. Yeah, I keep in shape.
Yeah, and like, man, escaping a headlock isn't actually that hard when you do jiu-jitsu. So I think that's a really applicable thing that jiu-jitsu would help a lot. Mm-hmm. But did he throw any strikes at all, or was it just grappling?
Yeah, so that's one thing that happens in policing a lot. Really, like a lot of I don't want to speak for all circumstances, but a lot of times people are just trying to get away from you. Mm-hmm. And like people don't want to be arrested. And so if they're throwing strikes, like there definitely is assault of people out there, and people who don't like cops and would love to beat the hell out of cops. Like that definitely is a factor out there. But in my experience, it's mostly people trying to get away. They don't want to go to jail. They don't want to go to the hospital. They don't want to go wherever you have to take them. And so did he throw any strikes? I don't know. If he did, that's maybe not what I was thinking of. It was that headlock that really scared the hell out of me. Yeah.
Man, if he did though, or threw more, you could definitely be in a lot of trouble, because someone that big on top of you, and especially when your partner, I assume she's on the smaller side, right?
Yeah. Well, she kept in pretty decent shape too. But the fact of the matter is, like, there's I brought a few notes because I wanted to share, but like there's a phrase. There's a guy down in the States. He runs this company, this training group of cops called C4C BJJ. It's Code 4 Concepts Police Jiu-Jitsu. And I watch a lot of his videos online. They talk a lot about like, simple takedowns, keeping control of people, that transition and handcuffing, that sort of stuff. So it's jiu-jitsu, but it's very police specific stuff that we have to know how to to get people in handcuffs, basically. And he uses this phrase, and it's ineffective force has the appearance of excessive force.
Yeah.
And that's so true. Like if you don't know what you're doing, or you're only relying on the minimum training. So the minimum training, I mean, it's... So
I was going to ask you about what training you do receive.
Yeah.
College.
Yeah. So there is a small amount of we call it defensive tactics. And defensive tactics is a lot about, it does make you aware about some things, like if someone has a knife, or when to transition from one tool to another, or when you're allowed to escalate force and de-escalate force. So, I mean, the training you receive is strikes, knees, kicks, punches, elbows, those sorts of things. There's some very basic groundwork that they do cover. But that groundwork is, in my opinion, or my thought, is that a lot of it probably stemmed from some Japanese jiu-jitsu. Like where you're grabbing a wrist and putting your forearm on the back of someone's tricep and trying to get them to go down. It's stuff that maybe if you're doing it against someone who's a lot smaller than you, or not resisting at 100%, you could do. But man, some of that stuff, it's not stuff that's pressure tested. So that's the thing, right? Like when we come to jiu-jitsu, we're pressure testing our fighting and our technique abilities. And that's why people tap to pressure, because holy shit, I got this guy on me and he's just crushing my face in side control, or he's got knee on belly. Like when you first feel that, when you first start, you enter a whole nother world of panic. And
I've tapped many times to pressure when I first started, especially from claustrophobia, panic. I didn't know what to do. And I'm sure we've done that when we started.
It happens. New guy came to the gym today, actually, and he tapped to pressure a couple of times, and I'm just like, let him go. And I was like to say to new people, I'm like, okay, I'll let you go. Let's keep going. I'm going to let off you, but think about it. If you were in a real fight right now, you wouldn't be able to tap out.
Yeah. Very few people will actually respect the tap in an actual, fight. So
yeah,
tapping here is one thing, but then in a real altercation, you might be super screwed. You probably will be if you want to tap and they're not going to let go. Right.
Yeah.
And when it comes to those wrist lock type of takedowns that are so popular in Japanese jiu-jitsu and Aikido, why don't you see them in wrestling, or why don't you see them in judo or in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? If they worked well, you would see them. And even if they did, because I don't think that they work great, and even if they did work great, without building the muscle memory of doing it, day after day, in the gym training, I think that the probability of something like that being useful is pretty low. So yeah, I think it is very important to, train takedowns that are tried and true, right? Like from actual wrestling, from judo.
Mm-hmm. Especially against a resisting opponent. Because most training, I used to do Japanese jiu-jitsu, and it was all against a non-resisting opponent. We would just let it happen. But when we train, we put up resistance. And yeah, it's valuable to do that for sure.
Yeah, they do go over, I shouldn't say they don't do anything ground-related or grounding-related. They do a couple things, but when you're doing yearly requirements, like a police service going through their yearly requirements, it's like generally it's only a couple guys in a training unit. They went through their week-long course, or maybe they train outside, but they got to get through 100, 200, 300 thousands of officers through this very regimented curriculum that they have, and they have to go, yep, I taught this guy that, right? So those police services can say, yeah, all our guys are trained. And I mean, they are in a sense, and the police service is doing what they have to tick those boxes. But I mean, whether those boxes are setting people up or for positive outcomes or not, I would leave that up to, I guess, the officers that are out there.
And for example, I wouldn't tick the box of someone being ready here if they've been training a year regularly, of okay, now you're ready to defend yourself in a real self-defense situation, right?
Yeah.
I want them training years and years, because it takes so long, and the consequences of losing a fight a real fight are extremely dire, especially when you're a police officer, because people can, be so willing to go extra, and obviously police officers have been killed, right?
Yeah.
I think even a year of like day-to-day training isn't enough. But it's better than nothing, but then to boil it down to a couple of weeks or whatever, I think that's police officers will be much better served by like day-to-day training and always keeping up with their training, right? Because no one's going to take me down with like a wrist lock style takedown. That's just not going to happen, right? Yeah. I think that the best type of takedowns for cops, police officers, would be like upper body type of takedowns, like body locks and stuff like that, as opposed to, single legs and doubles. Those can definitely be helpful, but still you're kind of shooting in, and I think the probability of those are lower. So I would think like hip throws, uchimatas, just like body lock, like lifts, like mat returns. Yeah, would be very useful for police officers.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of that stuff, like there's a lot of groups. So there is quite a, jiu-jitsu is growing in the policing world. There's there's really sort of a bit of an underground, or not an underground, but there's always a group of guys, usually in every service, who are training and who have really drank the jiu-jitsu Kool-Aid. I say, I think my coworkers kind of look at me and just go, okay, Aaron, whatever, right? But like, because I love jiu-jitsu, like on top of like being a cop and doing jiu-jitsu, and I think it's good for the job. Like it's got other benefits too. It's got a lot of like you've talked on this podcast about
100%.
the mental health benefits to jiu-jitsu. Like you cannot think of anything else when someone is smashing you, right? Or when you're trying to finally get this pass right, or you're trying to finally get this technique right, or like you're not thinking about what your kids are doing at home, or the crap that's going on at work or whatever. So you can mentally separate yourself from everything else that's going on in that hour.
Yeah,
and I think that's super important.
Yeah, and not only that, but also just the more prepared you are for something, especially like a fight, the better it's going to keep yourself safe, right? Because if someone were to do an MMA fight and they had a year of jiu-jitsu, I would tell them, you're not ready. Like you don't have those skills yet. You don't have, your jiu-jitsu probably isn't good enough yet, and you have no striking, and maybe no wrestling. I'd want them to develop those skills first, because again, the consequences of losing a fight are so dire. So to me, if I were a police officer, I want to do everything I can to make sure I come home safe to my family every single day. And the way to do that, I think, is to prepare and build those skills. So it's nuts to me that more police officers don't train jiu-jitsu and striking as well. But yeah, even then, I think that these things help, but you still need more. Like a good example was when I did the self-defense challenge reality show. Like I'm very confident in my fighting skills, but I was kind of blown away how different things are when you're in a self-defense situation. And it wasn't a real self-defense situation because it was obviously, they're not going to actually hurt us. But yeah, it felt real. Like 100%, it felt real. All my reactions, everything, like even what I was saying, I thought I was in there, like in a real situation. And it was very hard. It was very hard to have a clear mind and be as technical as I wanted to be. So, and things kind of change too. Maybe you're in a grapple, one guy, you're lifting him up or controlling him. There's some guy behind you punching you in the back of the head, which did happen to me. And then I realized I need to adjust my approach and use different skills than I would have otherwise, just going into it kind of blindly. So yeah,
it's adapting your training and adapting the things to the situation that you're in. Right. And that's the thing, like police, we're like, you can be in, like, training is awesome. And like, if you ask me, every cop should train. It's amazing, but everywhere you go is going to be a different scenario. So we don't have nice, clean mats. You're not on mats. You're on hard floor, concrete, hardwood floor, whatever. You're in apartment buildings that are small. You're in kitchens. You're in bathrooms. You're in all these places that are not ideal to do jiu-jitsu in. You know what I mean? So like, but that's when it breaks down to like, there's simple things like, man, if every cop knew how to do a really good Kimura and get someone's hand behind their back, or if every cop knew a good like body lock takedown, Like just knowing those few things and being really good at some really niche things would really help people out a lot.
Yeah, and just the ability, just the understanding of how people's bodies work too. I think that goes a long way. And before I used to think that, okay, I know jiu-jitsu, I know striking, I could teach like cops no problem how to defend themselves. But in reality, I think that if I were to do something like that, I'd want to like increase my skill set of like where it's more geared towards what you guys are actually faced with and what you guys do. But at the same time, like all these skills are going to help combine with what the skills you guys do have. But I think that anyone that advocates for jiu-jitsu is the answer. I don't think that is quite enough either. I think that again, you need to prepare every single possible scenario, every single possible way you can, and striking helps too for sure. But and even like this de-escalation is like so important, right? But like during that self-defense challenge, I was trying to use de-escalation and it didn't work. Like and I think I'm pretty good at de-escalating like situations, but because of the challenge the way it was set up, like we had to like fight. But whereas like last season they could use a little more de-escalation, but this season they were like, no, like you're gonna, like they didn't tell us, but de-escalation won't work. And that's just reality on the streets too, right? Where you might think that you're gonna do a great job de-escalating the situation, but this person is intent on fighting you.
Yeah.
So
or high as fuck on meth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Holy shit, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's definitely one thing I will say that like training martial arts jiu-jitsu has done is it makes you realize how much you really don't want to be in certain situations.
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm somewhere, the last place here's what I want. I have to get this guy to jail. Here's what I want. I want you to just put your hands behind your back and I want to walk you to the car and I want to treat you like gold, man. That's what I want to do. And I want this to be as smooth sailing as possible. And the more I can interact with you, the better. And the more I can try and de-escalate you, the better. But like you said, sometimes it doesn't go that way. I can try all the de-escalation in the world. I can bring mental health workers. Which is something we're basically every service is doing now, bringing mental health workers to scenarios, negotiators, all these things. We have all these tools in our tool belt. At the end of the day, if someone doesn't want to go to jail or someone doesn't want to go where we have to take them, you're ultimately going to have to go hands-on with someone, really. And we have tools. We have tasers. We have, we have bean bags, all kinds of different things we can use to make that happen. But a lot of things are reliant on pain compliance. And if someone's high on drugs, pain compliance doesn't work either. So being able to pin someone and control them, take the fight out of them through absolute pressure and just being uncomfortable and having someone say, okay, I give up, I give. You know, you ever watch these videos of like canines going in and they chomp down on some guy's arm, right? Like a lot of those videos, you see the guys aren't even punching the dog. They're just screaming, get him off me, get him off me, get him off. Okay, I'm done. Right? Well, it's because like they're helpless. Like you have this animal jump like clombing onto you, like you're helpless in that situation. And if you can make someone like that feel like there's no way I'm getting out of this, there's no way I can fight my way out of this, that's ideal. Where you're not striking them, you're not kneeing them, you're not kicking them, you're just taking the fight out of them. And that's like the first ones to really implement that idea into like a use of force scenario for policing was like, I think was the Gracie survival tactics. They brought all that in. And their sort of philosophy, and I mean, I don't want to misquote them or anything like that, but really is like if the average person, if you just pin someone and you can keep control of them for 30 to 90 seconds, like you'll take the fight out of most people. And I would say in my experience, like here, when you roll with someone who's brand new, that's generally true. Like if you can get someone in a good side control and you can really lay a good crossface on them and like staple an arm, man, it sucks. Like it sucks. And it is a helpless feeling for someone who doesn't know what they're getting into, right? So yeah, I think yeah, I think that's.
Well, do you think there's a risk going forward that because jiu-jitsu is becoming more of a popular sport, that there's risk that you're going to face people that do know what they're doing, and then especially a cop that doesn't know what they're doing? That's going to be a pretty sticky situation, especially if there's a size difference. I think size matters so much. Like, skills obviously matter.
Yeah.
But size, like that 6'3" dude, like I'd be freaking nervous too if I had to arrest him. And during the first season of the self-defense challenge, they had these two big guys come in and they tricked the competitors into thinking that they were going to fight these dudes, and they were all scared. And like, I would be too, honestly. But like, and that's just reality. Like, you might have these big dudes, and then it's especially important that you have skills. Like, I would trust in my skills, but I would definitely be nervous. But then you add the fact that they might train too. And more people train. Like, there's so many kids training nowadays. I think they're the least likely to kind of, go into a life of crime.
Yeah.
Yeah. But still, there's going to be some that slip through the cracks, someone that knows what they're doing. And because there are some crazy MMA fighters out there. And I wouldn't want to be a police officer with no training going to fight someone much bigger than me, or arrest someone much bigger than me that also trains, because that could be the end of your life.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And like, man, look at some of the beasts we got in this gym.
Yeah.
Like, you look at, like, we have a 15-year-old in here.
Yeah, he's a beast.
It takes everything to keep that kid off me. Yeah, like literally. And like, I've been training, but him and I have probably been training the same amount of time. And like, man, but he's athletic, he's fast. I would think, like, if I just threw him in a ring with someone like that didn't know what they were doing, he'd just take their back and choke him out.
A grown man.
Like a grown man who's way bigger than him. I'm a grown man who's way bigger than him, and he fucks me up. So like, I got to be careful with that kid, right? Like, I bring my A game when I'm rolling with him, right? And like,
when we're rolling out.
Yeah,
talking about him.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah, like, and some people are crazy out there, because what I think, like, when I'm driving and someone like gets mad at me, like some road rage, like I don't like respond back with like rage unless I'm like really like, in a bad mood.
Yeah.
But like, I think to myself, like, you're lucky I'm not crazy, because if I were crazy, I could kill you with my bare hands.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I'm not crazy. So,
but that's the other thing jiu-jitsu does for not just police officers, but everyone, is it makes you realize the last place I want to be is on the ground rolling, like on concrete, rolling around with you.
Yeah.
Like, or getting punched in the face sucks. All that stuff sucks. I would rather de-escalate or not react to the nonsense you're throwing my way, right? So that is also one huge advantage I think training martial arts and jiu-jitsu has. My fuse is in situations where, you're getting a lot of crap thrown at you, and people are trying to ramp you up. My fuse is longer than it once was, and it's because I will go hands-on when I have to, but only when I have to.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring that situation upon myself. If it's going to happen, it should be happening because I'm forced, like it's something I'm forced to do. Like I said, like, man, these situations, I'd rather have you just put your hands behind your back and let me drive you to the police station, man. Like,
have you had to use it since you started training?
I'm pretty lucky. Like, I have been in a few fights and tussles and stuff like that. But a lot of the jiu-jitsu that I'm using is so basic, like knee on belly. Like, so a lot of, like, if I'm using it, it's like people don't even know you're using it. It's just like you're putting your shin across someone's stomach, and but it doesn't look like jiu-jitsu. It's
something so basic that, and the basics are so helpful. It's so basic that maybe someone wouldn't do that if they didn't do jiu-jitsu.
That's right.
And they wouldn't have that tool available. So I think sometimes people think that, cops learning jiu-jitsu, they're going to armbar somebody or, whatever. But it's not just that. It's everything. Understanding how the body works, and using tools like knee on belly, which are, so important, and being able to get out of headlocks. It's so easy if you train jiu-jitsu. But if you don't, it's very hard, very scary.
Yeah. And you put yourself in positions like, Yeah, and if you're not training for those things, you know, if you're just doing your 1 year, like hour-long training, like, can you imagine if you only did jiu-jitsu once a year for an hour?
Oh my God.
Your jiu-jitsu would suck.
Exactly.
You know, like, and it's the same thing. I mean, like, if you're only training for that little and you're not doing anything to level yourself up, I mean, that's all the basis of your fighting skill. And, you know, so when you see like that quote, like, that ineffective force has the appearance of excessive force, like, you know, those videos you see on YouTube, you know, cops punching and kicking and kneeing and that kind of stuff. Like, I wouldn't even say that that's like, in some cases, it's not excessive force. It's they're doing what they have to do in order to gain compliance with this person. And that's they are moving back to what they know. That's what they know. They know how to punch, they know how to kick, they know how to knee people. And they know that because that's the only thing they've ever used in their life. And, you know, the hour they do a year of a little bit of, you know, a scissor sweep or a flower sweep, or, you know, doing it 3 reps a year, it's not enough to burn it into your brain to be able to effectively do it.
Not at all, because I think it's best not to even think of it like only one session a year of jiu-jitsu. It's like one session a year of learning how to control someone. Like, really, that's what it is. It's not just jiu-jitsu itself. It's how to control someone.
That's right.
Which is so important. Being a police officer, knowing how to control someone. And one thing I wanted to ask you too, like, have you seen Fargo, the TV show?
I've seen the Instagram shorts, like the clips of it, but I haven't seen it.
Well, there's this one scene where a police officer approaches Billy Bob Thornton, who's like the bad guy, and Billy Bob tells him, like, basically he doesn't want to mess with him. It's not going to be good for him. And then the police officer just backs away, lets Billy Bob go on his way because he didn't want to risk dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that happens often for cops, where they're in a situation where if they're going to do their job, they risk dying, so they just don't do their job?
Yeah, I mean, there's calculated risk in everything we do. I mean, this is the thing, right? It's like police services are so shorthanded everywhere. There's fewer and fewer police officers on the road because they're so tied up. So a lot of situations, it's you and one other person. And if you don't have the option of bringing a whole bunch more people, I mean, I have heard of people going, you know what, this juice ain't worth the squeeze. We're going to have to wait another day to get this guy. He'll be wanted tomorrow. So I have heard of that. I have heard of that happening in real life. Yes.
I think in some situations, it definitely would make sense. One that comes to my mind is that Texas school shooting where there's all these cops outside of the school waiting, doing nothing, while there's a school shooter that's active in there, shooting up all the kids. So in that situation, maybe they're thinking, I don't want to risk, dying, but there's like so many of them. Like, I guess we can't comment too much on that because we don't know all the details, but like that's something that's super messed up.
Well, yeah, that, you know what, that is super messed up. And like that, so that is one thing, like we don't train a lot in like hand-to-hand combat. We do like regular like shooting drills and stuff like that. Even that's only a couple times a year, but I would say it's probably about 100 times more training than we'd get in hand-to-hand combat. And like, if you ever have an active shooter situation, you are putting the public above you all the time. And that really is like on the hierarchy of things, it's like civilians come first. You're like last in the tier of priorities.
Especially when it's kids.
And I think if you talk to any police officer anywhere, whether it's that Uvalde school shooting or whatever, I mean, you're going to have a hard time finding police officers willing to defend not going into a situation like that and putting themselves in harm's way. And I don't have all of the facts and issue on that, but one thing's for sure, I know that if I was ever in that situation, I'd be running in there. Yeah, like hands down. And I think, I mean, having kids probably makes a big difference on that too. You have a different perspective on things, right? And that's another thing, going back to like, have you ever come across like where police officers just back away and say it's not worth the squeeze. Like, also all depends on the situation, like, am I in a house with a bunch of kids and, and, a vulnerable person or something, or am I driving along the street and I see someone who's wanted for shoplifting, You take those two things very differently. So every situation you're in, you have to weigh and you have to calculate and figure out on the fly.
Which is a hard thing to do. It is very hard to make, these drastic, important decisions like on the fly.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to use a self-defense situation too much because it's or a reality show because it's so different and not real. But that's one thing that I noticed too. It's like I have to think so fast, make the right decision. And it's so different from being on the mats where, you have to think fast, not to get guillotined or something like that. But when it's, people with knives and whatnot, even though they're fake knives in that situation, it's like things change so much. It blew my mind how different things can be. So
how was your experience using like jiu-jitsu, grappling, striking when someone has a knife?
It worked out pretty good for me, honestly.
Did it?
But
I didn't see it. I didn't see that episode or that stuff yet.
Well,
so.
It's not out yet, and I can't give too many details. But what I can say is that it worked pretty good. I used jiu-jitsu, and I also used a very unconventional way to use it.
Okay.
And everyone would probably think, oh, that doesn't work. You would never do that in a fight, or especially a knife fight. But it's like, well, it did work. So
So you adapted your jiu-jitsu to the situation.
Yeah, and I was strategic too, because I was thinking beforehand, like, how do I keep a knife away from my torso? Because that's the most, dangerous part of my body to be stabbed. So I thought, maybe I have something up my sleeve, and it worked. So yeah.
Okay.
I can't say much else.
Okay,
but,
cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to people seeing that. And again, like that whole experience just really changed my perspective on self-defense. And I have like a whole new respect for it, even because I think as a black belt and an MMA fighter, you're kind of like, oh, I can do anything, I'm a badass or whatever. Not that I think too highly of myself that way, but like you have more of a false sense of security because you have all these skills. But there's a difference between fighting in the cage and fighting on the mats than it is in a real life situation where so many different variables, different people, like multiple people, different weapons.
Life or death.
Yeah, life or death. Even just being in a small room, that can change everything completely. And just unexpected things like, you're not expecting someone just to pull out a knife all of a sudden. Like maybe you're sitting on the bus next to them and they pull out a knife and it's like, shit, what do I do? Well, I should give them my wallet for sure, but what if they try to stab me anyways, right?
That's right.
So when's the best time to, is it best to attack them and not let them, do that? Or will you get stabbed as you try to attack them, right? So choosing the right option is extremely hard. And again, the consequences of choosing wrong are extremely dire. So a whole new respect for that. And one thing I wanted to ask you too is like, is it frustrating for you kind of seeing the public perception of cops? I feel like it's kind of diminished the last little while. I think it's gotten better more recently, but especially during the pandemic, it was, defund the police, all this and that. I kind of equate it to like, yeah, of course there's bad cops out there, but there's also really bad jiu-jitsu instructors out there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we're like, not just bad of like, maybe they're assholes or something, but there's a lot of pedophile jiu-jitsu instructors that use their use their status and use their ability to be close to kids to groom kids and do all messed up stuff. And I would never want to be lumped in with that group. I'm really glad that people aren't like, all jiu-jitsu instructors are messed up, defund jiu-jitsu instructors.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's not an issue for us, but like for police officers, like bad cops can just paint all cops with such a negative brush in the public perception.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because like, I think if most people come up to me one-on-one, like it's funny when I talk to people like on the mats, right? Like, especially like newer people, like maybe they'll be training with me like 2 months, 3 months. And they'll ask like, what do you do? I'll be like, oh, I'm a cop. What? Like, really? You're a cop? Like, yeah. Like, so? And they'll be like, oh, I just didn't think. It's because I'm a normal person, man. Like, and that's what we all are. Like, it's a bunch of guys who are hockey dads and baseball coaches and, you know, generally the people that I work with and that, you know, are all like really, they're awesome people. And they're all like good people who do things for their community and generally are pretty nice people too. But yeah, there is the, you know, 0.5% or whatever they're jerks. And there's just no way around that. I think, I mean, and those things that people are basing off like defund the police and like all that stuff, it really comes down to, you know, you are painting an entire profession with, based off of, you know, one scenario or two scenarios. And while I definitely agree that some of those scenarios are just like ridiculous and I just shake my head, I mean, I also can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like, unfortunately, policing it's a necessary thing. If you didn't have it, it'd be chaos.
Yeah, I feel like as a society, we're trying to move away from like prejudice and grouping all people into one category just because a percentage of them do that, right?
For sure.
But when it comes to police officers, I feel like people kind of throw that out the window.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, just say a certain race you have a lot of negative experiences with. Well, and now you're going to be racist. Like, that's not right.
Right.
But then you only have negative experiences with a small percentage of police officers and then you hate them. It's kind of the same thing to me, right?
Yeah.
So people should be, you know, judged based off their character and not the character of other people that are similar to them in a sense.
That's right. It's also an uphill battle for police to improve their image too, because basically even if you aren't a criminal and you're just a normal civilian, like a normal everyday person, probably the interactions you're going to have with a cop are negative because you're getting pulled over for speeding.
Yeah.
Or you're getting a ticket for something. And that sucks, right? Like,
it does suck.
Like most people don't walk away from getting a ticket like, yes, that cop was, what an awesome dude, you know? Like, I can try as hard as I can to be a nice guy and be like, just sort of down to earth. And I would say most of the time I am. I'm pretty nice to even the people that I would pull over. But, I mean, I don't expect people to be like, oh, what an awesome guy for giving me a ticket, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I had one encounter with a police officer and I absolutely hated him because, long story, but I changed lanes in an intersection. I didn't realize that was illegal. And I don't even think that I was like in the intersection. I think I was past it. But he gave me a hard time. It was just a dick the whole time.
Yeah.
But I'm really good at getting out of tickets. I couldn't get out of that one.
Tell me your secret.
Yeah. No, it's honestly, you just be nice to them and you have to make them feel like they're in charge completely. Like, you're just sorry. I did it. You know what I mean? And just be nice. Like, I got out of, I shouldn't have done this, but I was speeding in a school zone. I shouldn't have done that. But I was going, I think, 80 and a 40.
Ooh.
But there was no kids, you know. There was no kids. It was like, you know, they were in school.
I do not condone speeding at school zones. It's a bad idea.
I know. I apologize for that. I haven't done it since, I swear. But yeah, like, it was actually on this road going to the gym.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I talked my way out of it. I didn't get a ticket. And then another time, I was driving Nikki to work and we were late.
So how'd you talk your way out of it? Did you own up to it?
I just owned up to it. I'm like, I know I was speeding. I'm very sorry. I was just very excited to get to the gym because we just took it over. We're expanding. I want to, you know, get there first because everyone's going, and I want to be the first to like show them. And he's like, okay, yeah, and it was just fine. It was fine.
Yeah.
He didn't give me a ticket. And then I was like proud of myself for getting out of that one. But another time too, I was driving Nikki to work and we were late and I got pulled over on Highway 2 and I think I was going like maybe 90 and a 60. So not great, well, pretty bad, I guess, like 50% over. And Nikki, it was really her because she started crying, made the guy feel bad.
Yeah.
I didn't even have my license on me.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and we still got off and he just let us go. So yeah, there's, you know, you can have like negative experiences where maybe it is your fault or maybe it's not, or you can have great experiences too. You know, I want to keep going with my streak of getting tickets. So
not getting stopped in the first place.
Yeah, that'd be ideal.
It's the best. Yeah.
Well, usually I'm good at seeing them too. I've got a really good eye for seeing cops. Yeah. And then I slow down right away.
Like as far as talking your way out of tickets, like, I mean, I'm not advocating to incriminate, for anyone to incriminate themselves. And I'm not advocating to try and talk your way out of a ticket. But what I will say is, like, I like when people are accountable. Like if you screw up and you are like, man, that was dumb, or like, I can't believe I did that. I'm sorry, or whatever the case may be. Like, I'm probably more likely to let you off.
Exactly.
Whereas if I pull you over for doing 80 in a 40 in a school zone and you're like, no, wasn't doing that, I'm probably more likely to give you the ticket. And it's because, like, clearly, like, even a police officer pulling you over, for most people, that's enough to sort of get them a little bit most people, I would say. It's enough to kind of get them nervous to be like, oh my gosh, there's some consequence coming here, right, to my actions. But if you're already owning up to what you did, I mean, any lawyer worth his weight would say the opposite of what I'm saying. Don't tell the cop anything. Don't own up to anything. That's what they're going to say. But I mean, in my opinion, if someone's being truthful and honest and not trying to get out of a ticket, they're just being like, man, I screwed up.
Yeah.
I'm far more likely to let them off. And I'll stipulate that I don't do a ton of speeding enforcement. That's not my forte, but that's, in that case, you probably did the right thing by owning up. So
complete ownership, like Jocko Willink, right?
Absolutely.
It was my fault. I'm very sorry. I know I was speeding. I'll take the ticket, anything you have. But I think if you try to fight it, then they're more willing to, like, write you up even more.
Yeah.
Right?
Extreme ownership. Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. And that's what good leadership's about. And that's what, and if you live by your life by those principles, I mean, whether you get the ticket or not, probably not going to be doing 80 and a 40 ever. Yeah.
Exactly. Either way, I learned my lesson.
Yeah, that's right. I
learned my lesson, and I got to save money by him not charging me for that. But I 100% learned my lessons. I don't want to go through that again. Yeah. Even though I would like to test my skills of, like, can I talk my way out of this again? But maybe not in a school zone, at least.
Right. Yeah, I think that, I think the big thing is that, I mean, my takeaway from just training jiu-jitsu is that overall, and just training martial arts, is that overall, it's going to make you better as a person, and it's going to and because it makes you a better person, it's also going to make you better at your employment, whatever that is you do, whether you're a plumber or a cop or a pilot or whatever. I think it makes you more level-headed, and I think it, keeps you humble too. And that's
definitely does that.
Yeah, it keeps you humble, and I think that's the important part to take away from cops learning jiu-jitsu and trying to incorporate it more. And I think that there's a big, like I was mentioning before, there's a big sort of movement. You were talking about Jocko. So, like, Origin, his company is they're hosting a jiu-jitsu camp just for law enforcement in Maine. I can't remember when it is. And this C4C group, this Chad Lehman, he's hosting a big camp, and it's all law enforcement getting together. It's a lot of like-minded guys who really want to influence departments to take on grappling centered use of force stuff, and sheepdog response. Tim Kennedy, he's a big one too. The Gracie survival tactics, all that stuff. Like, it's so good, and it's good for police in not just being capable police officers, but just their mental health is better, and their abilities, and their being humble. Because that, a lot of the stories I hear, like that one, like, it's all about, like, there's a little bit of an ego behind it, right? And there is some of that. Like, you strap on a bulletproof vest and give you a gun, and, like, there's some people who it's like, it is kind of empowering, right? Like, you feel like, wow, like, I have a lot of responsibility, but a lot of things I can also do now, right? Like, it's such a privileged position. really, like it is, because your thoughts and your actions can change people positively or negatively.
Well, I think for jiu-jitsu, I think 99% of people become more humble, and then like 1% or something like that become less humble.
Right.
Where they're like, I'm a badass, I know jiu-jitsu, I'm a black belt.
Sure.
Those people are so annoying because they give such a bad rap. Like cops are not. I didn't hate people that are like just cocky and not humble and like think that they're hot shit. Like I don't get along with those people at all, because to me the biggest flex is being good at jiu-jitsu or being a good martial arts, but not acting like it, like. But what's even worse is if you're not good and you act like you're good. But even if you are good, you shouldn't act like you're good.
That's right.
You just be humble. So
that's right.
Yeah, that guy gives a bad rap to the whole, police force, really.
Yeah.
But is there like, I know there is like they I don't know, assessment stuff like your mental, I don't know, make sure you're not crazy and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But are those like pretty thorough, or do some people slip through the cracks that are kind of like nutcases?
I mean, when you first go in, you go through the whole process, and then generally towards the end, they do a psychological assessment. In Ontario, the province we're in, they go through what's called an MMPI, which is a Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. That's the name of the test, and it's like 800 and don't quote me on the number of questions, but it's like 800 questions of like,
oh my God.
Of like, when you pick your nose, do you look at it? And would you rather? So they're
do.
Yeah. But they also ask questions that sort of they want you to answer truthfully, so that they get a very good outlook of your personality and your different characteristics that you might have, and they want you to fall into a certain parameters. And if you're off on any of these things on the test, they sort of address those things, or they don't take you. They just say, no, sorry, we can't take you. And they might not even tell you that they're not taking you for that reason. They might just cut you from the process and say, sorry, we're not interested. And then that is followed up by usually a lengthy interview with a psychologist or psychiatrist. And they break down, how you grew up, who you grew up around, what's your outlook on this. They ask you a lot about your biases and about, like a lot of different things. So my answer would be, no, I don't think many people slip through the cracks. I think a lot of things that you see with police officers, like, you're saying like they're crazy. Like, cops deal with the worst people in society generally all the time.
Yeah.
And there is no way, whether you're the greatest person on earth or the Dalai Lama, that you can deal with the worst people in society all the time and be pushed into the worst situations in the world. You're telling people that their kids are dead. You're telling people that their kid was in a car accident. You're telling people, you're seeing it firsthand. Not only are you going to accidents and collisions or fights or things that are changing people for the rest of their lives, and you're dealing with that person, but then you're going right from there to then telling their whole family, this person is changed forever, or could be changed forever, right? So between all of those things, and then in between that, dealing with a lot of nonsense. My neighbor's dog is barking. Road rage.
Yeah.
Someone yelled at me someone cut me off, screamed at me, and gave me the finger. Like, we get calls for that.
Yeah, exactly.
That we have to go and try and track a person down because they cut someone off and flipped them the bird. And
which isn't illegal.
Well, maybe cutting someone off, but yeah, like, and after a while, like, so if you don't have the right coping mechanisms to deal with that stuff, it'll get to you.
Yeah.
And that's what you see. And that's why you see a lot of cops. Like, there's a lot of cops off on stress leave, sick leave, all those things, and that's the same with firefighting. Like, you see all that terrible stuff. You see paramedics. Like, there's a very high rate of people off on sick or mental health leave and all that stuff. And oh, you're dealing with all that crap all the time. And if you don't have outlets and supports or your ego gets in the way of you being able to reach out and ask for help when you need it, which is probably one of the biggest problems in any first responder community. It's a lot of knowing when to reach out and knowing when you're, I need to take a step back from this. That's a hard thing to realize.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of goes both ways, right? Where like bad cops can give cops as a whole a bad reputation, but then bad people in society can give, within the eyes of cops, society as a whole a bad reputation almost, where you might become more cynical.
Yeah. Being cynical, or like the classic phrase is like, that cop was really jaded.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like there is cops that do become jaded, because it's like, all you're dealing with is the worst. And then it compounds, because the people that you feel you're putting away in jail, or you're trying to basically hold people sort of accountable for their actions. Sometimes our system doesn't always hold people accountable, or we feel that the system doesn't hold people accountable for their actions. So it's even more frustrating. You dealt with this horrible situation. You had to go tell a family member that you're something bad happened to them. So you're dealing with all that. Then you go ahead and you push forward with charges, and then the court system doesn't, in your eyes, do what you think is an appropriate thing. All that being said, though, like, we have the best system in the world. Like, I could make a lot of complaints about it, but I don't think there's any, and while there is some, there is good in calling out what's nonsensical or doesn't make sense, we also have to realize that, like, in the States, in Canada, like, we have the best justice system in the world. Like, you're not going to be like, well, I don't know, I can't speak for the States, but generally, like, you have a right to a trial. Like, if you even think of that, that's something that, like, other countries, they don't have. Like, if a cop in China wants to arrest you, you're screwed. Like, you're going away, and might not be coming back. And not only are you going away, you're going away to a work camp or something, right? Like, whereas in Canada, we have a very different system. Like, you're innocent until proven guilty, and you have all these rights. And if you can't afford a lawyer, like, the system will give you a lawyer to defend yourself. So there is a lot of pluses to our system as well. I can't say it's all bad or it's all good, but I think we really do have to be thankful for the position we're in as, like, Canadians and Americans, and just to be here and haven't been passed down all these things that we've been given. And I think especially our court system and stuff, like, I think I kind of got off track there, but
no, I agree. And it's very similar to what we've been saying. It's like, just because some bad things happen doesn't mean it as a whole is bad, right? Because the justice system is much better than it is in other countries, for sure, despite there being some issues, for sure. Like, people getting off very easily or getting bailed and going right away, committing more crimes. It's a big issue we have in Canada. But overall, like you said, we do have good things in place. Like, one thing that pissed me off, I was watching a documentary on Paul Bernardo and his wife.
Carlone Moga.
Yeah. I was watching that last night and the night before, and it made me so angry because the things they did, basically, it's this couple in Canada in the 90s who raped and abducted teenagers. Murdered. Yeah, murdered too. Yeah, and she only got 12 years of jail time, and now she lives in Quebec, living her life like normal. But she was just as guilty as Paul, and that whole thing just, like, I don't know, made me very angry. I didn't sleep like the night, like a couple nights ago, because I was just thinking about it so much. But just because one thing's broken doesn't mean that the whole thing is.
There's a lot of those. There's a lot of those out there where, like, I just go, oh my God, I can't even believe, like, we're dealing with this same person. again, like, how is this even possible? What person in their right mind says, yeah, this guy should be out on the street today? But someone out there says they should be. So it's beyond me. It's beyond my pay grade to make those decisions. And it's, politicians and judges and lawyers and all that stuff that makes those decisions and make those things happen. But I think a lot of the negativity you find in policing is focusing on the negative aspect. Police have a tendency to focus on those negative aspects of their job. And some of those outcomes, those types of outcomes that are so frustrating. So you can imagine the cops that worked on that case.
Yeah, I would not want to be, I would not want to have to watch those tapes.
And you got to watch all those tapes. You got to interview people. You got to review evidence. You got to literally put like weeks and months worth of work into building a case that you think is like, there's no way that these people are ever going to step foot outside of a prison because they don't deserve to, right? And then, 12 years, see ya.
Yeah, because she talked, right?
Yeah,
and that's why.
So you can imagine, like, you don't think that cop that was working on that case is jaded? Oh, like,
yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, like, it is important. Like, I would say, like, it's not people getting through, like crazy people getting through to become cops. It's cops that go through experiences like that and they get so frustrated and so overwhelmed with their emotions, and they don't have coping mechanisms or ways to sort of relieve themselves of that frustration.
Yeah.
And I think that gets to a lot of people.
Well, I think it'd be hard for anyone, but especially fathers in that scenario, to watch that and not want to take out some vigilante justice, right? And that's how I felt the whole time watching it. It's like, I want to be in a room with Paul Bernardo. Like, I don't want him just to go to jail. I want to get some vigilante justice on him, right? Because he's on camera doing this stuff. It's not like it's just speculation. It's not like, maybe he did it. But then that creates all sorts of issues too with vigilante justice. But man, that would piss me off. That would jade me big time if I was a cop. But with, I guess we'll kind of end this with one more question. In your opinion, what's the best way to reduce crime? Is it to increase the amount of police officers out there, or is it to be more like preventative with mental health services, just a better society and stuff like that, or is it a combination of both?
It's a good question. I mean, this is the question that everybody asks, and I wish I had a magic wand and I could fix it. What's the ways? I mean, I think mental health is one of those ways, and I think a lot of the stigma around mental health, like, it is gone. I mean, still is a stigma, but a lot of it is sort of moving out of the way, and I think that's been very beneficial. But as far as to reduce crime, I mean, in my own opinion, yes, more police officers means more crime is being fought. And so there's that. I think police in general have a real, from services all across Canada and the States, will tell you, any cop will say, we're short on the road. We don't have enough police officers to deal with the amount of calls coming in. Like, that is a super common problem. You're prioritizing people being stabbed, you're prioritizing, all these types of crazy calls coming in, and you have to decide, and dispatchers have to decide what's the most important thing on the board here. And so yes, more police officers definitely would help. Like I said, I don't want to focus too hard on the negatives of our system, but holding people accountable for their actions, i.e., if you commit a crime, you probably shouldn't be able to be bailed out quite so easily.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not uncommon to see someone being bailed out by their bail supervisors. Bail supervisors is maybe a group of people, or a society, or a like a nonprofit, for example, that might even go to a bail court and say, like, oh, we'll be this person's supervisor, and we'll it's not uncommon to see a judge say, like, this person has to be released at an address approved by bail supervision, and then the bail supervision to say, you're released to no fixed address.
Mm.
That is so common. So common. So how does this group, or this group that's bailing these people out, how do they actually supervise these people? Well, the answer is they probably don't. And that happens over and over and over again. And those people commit lots of crime.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that unhoused people should be more accountable than housed people. But if you're on bail, I think that probably you should be supervised to a certain degree.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like one super, I don't know, hardcore case of that would be, I forget which South American country it is. Is it Ecuador? Or I'm not sure. I could be totally wrong. But they just put so many criminals in jail. They built this huge mega prison and put, like, if you've got like gang tattoos, you're in jail, which I'm not saying I agree with, but now their crime.
Tattoos,
Yeah. Sorry. No, but then their crime went way down. Now it's a super safe country. So it's like one of those things. I'm sure some innocent people kind of slip through the cracks, and sucks for them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also is great for the people that aren't being
Victimized.
Yeah, victimized.
Yeah.
It's such a tough thing on both ends, because you don't want to screw anyone over. Definitely changes need to be made. So with that said, thank you for sticking around till the end of the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with Aaron. It was a great one. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, with that said, thank you for sticking around till the end of the podcast. If you're still here, please leave a comment or a fist bump, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.